Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NextDev. I am joined by my lovely co-host here,
Dan Gooswin.
and today we have a very special guest that you may be very familiar with. We have Wes Bos. How you doing, Wes?
Hey, doing good. Thanks for having me. It should be fun. I'm very excited to talk about web dev, but also I just got a 3D printer, so I'm looking behind you right now, and I just want to talk shop.
I know we gotta restrain from not talking too much shop, or else we might skyrocket Bamboo Lab sales in the span of an hour. But anyways, let's get started. So you have done a ton of stuff as a JavaScript developer, an educator, and a podcaster who has taught over 500,000 people JavaScript through your courses, which is just mind-boggling alone, that number. So you've gone from your early days of like customizing MySpace pages to like co-hosting Syntax FM.
Mhm.
And you started making websites pretty young, right? Like around like the age like 11 and stuff like that from your first site.
Yeah, something like that. I have a live counter of milliseconds on wesbos.com/about. But man, I got into web dev like during the dial-up days, so way back. I've been at it for quite a while.
That's crazy. What sparked like your interest in web dev at like such a young age? Because I'm sure like all the other kids in school weren't like talking about the
Yeah.
newest HTML syntax.
Um, like I remember like getting the internet and saying how does stuff get on here? How do you get where are these websites? Like I didn't really understand how it worked. And then I realized like there was like all these like kind of pop up make your own websites. GeoCities is the big one. I was using free servers. Um, and it was just like really interesting to me and really cool to have your own website. And at the time we had .tk domain name, so you could have wesbos.tk for like it was like a .com for free. Um, it was just so sweet that you could do all this, and it just was just so exciting to me that you could just put stuff online, and that sort of just forayed into I've always been like a bit of a business guy, like making money, so just wanting to spin that into making MySpaces and making websites and all that kind of stuff.
Wasn't it I'm wasn't it like Freenom or something like that for the .tk websites? I have a very vivid core memory of that, like from my early childhood, because I used to be spinning up those GitHub like pages every single like weekend with like the C names to the Freenom pages. And I remember you could get like 12 months free for a TK domain, but like if you clicked the year, it was like $9. But if you clicked
Oh,
12
okay.
months, you could get it for free. That
No,
that
this was way before GitHub, like probably 12 years before GitHub even became a thing. But like at the time they were just giving out free .tk domain names to literally everybody.
that's cool. That's cool.
That's awesome. So, talking a bit more about how you got into software development, into web dev, there's an aha moment, when you build something and you get hooked immediately, no going back. What was your aha moment?
Um, I don't know that I had that like no going back moment. I certainly had lots of should I keep going moments. Cause like it's fucking hard, man. And it sucks a lot of the times. I have very vivid memory of um being, I think what it was. I think it was in like university because like I had been like doing web dev kind of through high school just for fun and designing things for fun. And then I was like second year university. I didn't go to school for web development, but I was like really into it, and I was like building stuff for clients. And I like had this like moment where I was just like so frustrated with the thing I was building, and I had this moment being like is this for me? Like am I not smart enough to be able to do this type of thing? And that was like a huge hump, and I remember getting past that with the help of some of my friends that helped me out. And like, I remember just like having that relief of like getting past that, like, okay, I can do this. And then the second one was like getting to a point where I think I can build anything, like I don't know everything, but I know I can figure it out, and you get to that point where you realize, oh, okay, I feel like I know enough that I can then, with enough time and money and frustration, I can figure it out.
Yeah, that frustration is the big thing that will almost make you be like, it's really worth it that I'm doing this. If this is the ninth stack error that I'm running into, should I just go to bed and just start all over again? But yeah, no, I 100% agree. Now, I remember saying the MySpace customization. Now, obviously, I am heavy Gen Z. MySpace was before my time, even though I would have loved to experience it.
Yeah.
How did what were you doing with like the MySpace customization, and how did that like kind of shape your experience of like web development and design?
Yeah. So at the time, the move was that you could design something in Photoshop, and then you would slice that sucker up into like a whole bunch of like GIFs, and then you would host them on like Photo Bucket or something like that, and then you would go into your like bio for MySpace and you just dump a whole bunch of CSS in there. And I remember like the class names were crazy and randomly generated, and it was like the Wild West. But like being able to tweak that was like the ultimate flex, like, oh man, where'd you get that sick layout? And at the time I was doing like CD designs and t-shirt designs for bands. Like I'm very, still am big in the hardcore scene. So these bands would hire me to design like a t-shirt, a MySpace, and a CD art, and all kind of cohesive. It would look together. So that was the move at the time. It was all tables, and CSS was very early, and it was a huge mess. And if you accidentally deleted it, like there's no version control. I remember just like nuking my bio. You're editing right in the bio and just hitting save and then refreshing the page and seeing how it looked. And then we used image maps at the time as well. It's wild.
Wow. That's just...
Yeah. Do you even know what an image map is? I'm curious if
I'm Googling it right now. Yeah? I kid you not. I'm looking it up because
I used image maps for video game development.
Oh man. So for anyone who doesn't know, like image map is like you literally just like say the pixels, and you can do like a circle link if you really wanted to, and you just overlay them on top of an image. So we would do these like really cool like add to friend message. There was like 6 links on MySpace, and you would just design that thing as like a GIF and upload it, and then you would do an image map and you just overlay the actual links on top of it. It's like super inaccessible.
Wait,
you do that now.
Oh, I remember. Okay, so that's what my dad, he used to do a lot of like internal web design stuff like that. And back in like the early like 2000s, he created this sort of options panel, and it looks really, really good by today's standards, because when you would hover over something, it would like give a nice cool color gradient. And he was like, yeah, I just did it with a bunch of variations of images. And I'm like, well, how did you like know where the cursor was when you didn't have like JS or anything like that? But that all makes sense with an image map, because you would just trigger.
That's not even image maps though. That was Macromedia rollover. So you use Dreamweaver, and when you hover over top of a button, you would just change the image source or the background image of the button. And then the move was you would preload those so your hovers were fast.
Interesting. See, I'm learning so much already. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed out on this whole like era of like web development, because I find that, because I feel like you had to be a lot more innovative when you wanted to create like a cool animation or like a cool like effect or something like that. You couldn't just like whip up ChatGPT, be like, hey, make this effect with ChatCDN and Tailwind.
And the web was like a different place at the time as well. Like everything was just a fixed box, so you could just make the most wild layouts, and then your like body content was just a little 400 by 300 scrolling area.
Can we just agree that Dreamweaver dying is a good thing for web dev space, or what are your thoughts?
Oh man, yeah, that's like 5 or 6 editors ago. I don't think anyone uses. Well, is it still a product? It probably is. People probably still use it, but yeah, I remember at the time we were all like, "Don't use the Dreamweaver editor. Write it by hand." And like, that's the equivalent of us being like, "Don't use AI to write your code because it's you need to know what it's doing, otherwise you'll have issues."
And we have issues either way.
Yeah,
That's what we
there's
found
always
out.
that thing. Yeah, we had it with Squarespace for a while. Don't use site builders, code it by hand.
Awesome. So going back into your background again, I would love to hear whether or not you have formal education in the subject of technology web dev.
Not really. So I went to school for information technology management, which is a like a business degree. They've renamed the program now. It's called Business Technology Management, and it's more like planning systems and telecom, computing, IP addresses, subnetting, and then lots of like accounting, economics, things like that. So I never, I had one course, an elective in web development, and I tried to flex so hard and I almost failed it because they're like, this is not what we asked. We asked you to like use a like HTML and you're building this like jQuery slider thing. So I don't really have any formal training in web development. It's all been just self-learned over the years.
Yeah, the overachieving. I have a very, very almost exact same story. I had a web class, which surprisingly they didn't use any like modern frameworks. It was like they were just like make an HTML page, and I was like, hey, can I like import like the development Tailwind like class to make it look a little bit better? And he was like, yeah, sure. And I did, and I didn't use AI, but I just did a bunch of little Figma stuff, and then I recreated that in the page. And then the professor was looking at like the final submission, and he was like, this is really fast, really responsive. How did you cheat? And I'm like, no, it's just I used modern like JavaScript libraries and CSS and stuff like that. And he was like, okay, I'll let it slide this time, but next time just do what the project says. So I almost got in trouble for doing too much. It was like it loaded so fast too. Anyways,
Oh, that's great.
I know, yeah. So before your online courses that you've done, where did you teach before that? I've got a couple places here like Ladies Learning Code and like HackerU, which is now Juneau College. But what was your experience like at those, and how did you kind of get into those sort of programs?
Yeah, so the way I got into all of that was I had been writing blog posts. I was trying to get like Chris Coyier of CSS Tricks, The move was I wanted to put ads on a blog and get rich. So I started blogging about like the stuff I knew about, which was web development, and just putting out there sharing what I learned. And that caught attention of kind of a lot of people in the Toronto tech scene. Because at the time, Twitter was just a couple years old, and we used to have these tweet ups, which is so silly when you think about it now. But like we would literally go and party with other people that had Twitter. And it was like Twitter used to be huge on like geolocation. Every tweet had your geolocation tag to it. So you could just like filter for tweets that were close by. And the first iPhone came out, there's this app called Twinkle. Everybody was twinkling. And I don't even know what I'm talking about. I just blank. Well, are we talking about teaching? Yeah. So I met like lots of people in like the Toronto tech scene, and they, a couple women in the scene were starting up this thing called Ladies Learning Code. And they were like, hey, do you want to come teach one of our first workshops, which was on WordPress? And I thought, okay, like maybe I think I could probably make that work. So I put together like an 8-hour workshop on WordPress, and it was crazy. We had like, I don't know, 60, 70 women come out, and I just like, I've never taught before, but I just like sort of like, this is how I get it in my head. And I just like explained it how I understood it. And a lot of people are like, oh, I really like the way you explain it. And like, your examples are kind of stupid, but it makes sense, you know? And I was like, oh, wow, maybe I like this teaching thing, you know? And then Ladies Learning Code, the people who founded that, they started something like HackerU, which was a like early on in like the boot, like one of the like first boot camps. Like I remember meeting with them. They're like, in New York, there's this thing called a boot camp, and it's gonna be really big. And what they're doing is they're teaching people to code in 11 weeks or whatever. We want to build one in Toronto, but we're gonna start with like part-time classes. So I think for 2 years I did part-time classes on web development. And then they started up the boot camp. I did all the curriculum and taught the very first one of that. And yeah, that's kind of how I got into like teaching in person. And then all while doing that, I was also making YouTube videos and blogging and making my own courses as well.
That's awesome. And just out of curiosity, did you have experience working with WordPress, PHP, and whatnot before you taught the thing?
Yeah. So when I was going through university, I was like, all right, well, I did a bunch of like co-ops, which is like you go work for 6 months at like a bank. I worked at Exxon Mobil. I worked at CIBC, which is a big bank here in Canada. And I was like, this sucks. Like, I do not want to do this. I just want to I want to keep making websites, you know, like I always had been making websites for my friends, but then I was like, I need like a CMS. I didn't even know that's what it was, but WordPress was the one at the moment. So I got really good at WordPress. I did like freelancing, consultancy all through university doing like WordPress stuff. And then by the time I graduated, I just like went full-time freelance. So I had quite a bit. I was very good at WordPress, I would say. But after, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years of doing WordPress, I decided I'm going to go whole hog on this JavaScript thing because I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, it looks like Goose's internet died, so that's an RIP. But we'll continue in his absence. Never like I said before the show. It's like you never know. It never can be just like a good even stream. There's always got to be something that that happens. But continuing on with that, and we'll probably circle back to this. But when you were making your like initial courses and stuff like that, how did you choose like what to do? Was it just something that you found that was like you were really passionate about or something like that? Or you were just like, hey, I see a need that a lot of other people have made this and I'm going to help them with that?
Like, you're referring to like the courses that I'm building?
Yeah,
Or
like
what?
the courses that you build. Like
Yeah.
how did you come up with those topics to teach those courses?
It's mostly just stuff that I'm really excited about, mixed with stuff that hits. So like my first course was on Sublime Text, and that was because like I had been like trying to figure out like this blogging thing, you know, and like the YouTube thing, and I was like, all right, I did a couple blog posts on like my favorite Sublime Text tricks, and those did super well. And I just kind of scrambled and threw up a little sign up list and said, I'm writing a book on Sublime Text, and that got like 2,000 signups in like a day, which is nuts. Like that doesn't happen often anymore, where you get that sort of easy runaway success.
Right.
But that worked really well. And then that course I launched, it did very well. And I thought, like, what am I going to do next? You know, and I have all kinds of stuff I'm really excited about and things I would like to teach other people. So that's like my main thing is like, what am I excited about? And then the other like part of deciding is teaching in person. I feel like I got a good handle on what people were missing and what they needed. So just like seeing the struggles IRL, I was able to figure out the different types of courses that were needed in that space.
Right. Yeah. And I think the the feedback of like that struggle and seeing, and also it helps being very active on like social medias and chronically online, like I'm sure so many of us are. You can kind of get a better picture of being like, oh, okay, they're having an issue with this, or this is the trending framework that's having this issue. So since you have made those great choices of teaching people JavaScript, 500,000 people JavaScript, but is that a confirmed number? Like a 500,000? Do we have that like on the dot, or is that like a heavy estimate?
It's over that by now, which yeah, is pretty nuts. But yeah, it's over that. My one course alone, JavaScript 30, which is 30 days of like little JavaScript thing, is over 700,000 people.
Wow.
Like signed up for it and at least taken one video, you know, not
Right.
necessarily done the whole thing, but it's at least a couple 100,000 people have learned to console log and do a couple loops and click a button with me.
That's still, I think that that 700 is, that's no small number right there.
Yeah.
So what Goose was going to ask, but while he's working on that internet restoration right now, he would recommend the JavaScript 30 class a lot, and he was telling me about that he would always recommend it for an amazing resource of newer developers. And I can't remember the exact course name, but I think I took that as a course a while ago. So it's because it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And with that, what's your like, do you have any sort of systematic, oh good, he's joining now. Do you have any sort of like systematic approach to like creating content once you actually decide the topic? And yeah, go dive into that real quick.
So when I decide I'm going to do a course, I decide if it's either going to be like a project base, which is like we build one thing, or it's going to be like individual focus on specific topics. And that really depends on what you're trying to learn. If you're trying to learn how to build like a full stack store, then yeah, it makes sense to build a whole thing. But if you're trying to learn just individual parts of the language or of React or whatever, then it makes sense to sort of cut it up. So I usually I have mind mapping software, and what I'll do is I'll just dump what do I think people need to learn, and these are all the topics that I need to hit, and these are all the problems that I had, and I think that need to be explained well. And then once I have that sort of fleshed out of like what do the people need to learn, I'll sort of back it up and say what can we build and how do we build it in order to learn this thing that is fun, that is efficient, that is exciting. You know, like there's lots of snoozer courses out there. There's lots of courses out there no one's gonna ever finish. So I try to like figure out what's the most action-packed way to deliver this content.
Awesome. I dropped out for a second. Apologies for that.
No
I
problem.
myself have personally recommended JavaScript 30, one of your courses in the past, as a
Oh,
good
thank you.
starting point for people who are looking to get into web dev. And, you're quite a notable figure in this education web dev space, probably the biggest I have seen. And I have to ask, what would be the most rewarding thing about, being Wes Bos?
Sorry, say that again. My headphones cut out for a sec. You have to ask.
Yeah. What would be the most rewarding part of being Wes Bos in web dev space?
Like I think like there's two parts. There's like the selfish part, which is like it's a sweet job, being able to just make cool stuff all day and figure it out and hack on whatever. And doing the podcast as well. That's really fun. So that's part of it. And then the other part is like I don't think about this a whole lot, but like every now and then you get emails from people being like, "You changed my life." And like I don't like getting all sappy or up on my high horse, because like it's those people that are putting in the work and doing this. But somebody will email me, "Hey, I got a job, I got a $50,000 raise," and for me to be just part of their journey of changing their life and being able to get a well-paying job or to do something they love is pretty nifty that I can do that. I'm not very much a sentimental guy, but that's pretty cool when you hear that type of thing.
Definitely keeps you going when there's like good positive change off of your actions and stuff like that, where you're like, wow, I really helped that person. Makes you feel good and want to push further. So with all that feedback and the stuff that you've done with teaching so many courses and different things over the years, what is like the most common struggle you've seen? We'll dial down on JavaScript.
Yeah.
What's the most common struggle that you've seen people with like JavaScript, and like how do you address it, like as like a teacher point of view?
I think the biggest struggle I see is that people just don't have it. And what I mean by that is it takes a lot of work to get really good at coding. And I know that because I'm not some smart guy. I'm not some wizard who you see all these like 19-year-old kids raising $7 million and just like, oh, I coded an electric car in my free time. Like you see those guys and you think, wow, that's really good. But that's not most people. Like most of us are a bit of an idiot and we're just trying to learn all this stuff ourselves, and it's frustrating and it's slow and whatnot. And a lot of people don't understand that it simply just takes the hard work and the momentum of just putting it in, building lots and lots of stuff every single day in order to get really good and really comfortable at this type of stuff. So that's the biggest struggle I see is and my suggestion to people is like, you just need to make 1,000 things. You need to make a lot of stuff. You need to do it over and over again, and you need to finish these things so that you feel good about what you're doing and that you want to move on to the next one, right? It's not enough just to have one side project that you never launch. And that's why I launched the JavaScript 30 course as well, because I was like, you need this over and over, do it again, right? Like there's no formation without repetition. And honestly, that's the cheat code. Just wake up and do it as much as you can for as long as you possibly can, day in and day out.
And at least, and even if you don't feel good, like this is something I find myself, I will make something and I'll ship it and I'll just throw it up on a website and I will feel horrible about it. But at least it's up there to show a mark in a progress line. I was here, now I'm here. And I've noticed that even if you just push something out there and it's not perfect, it gives you a lot of perspective when you do push something out there that you are really happy about and you're really proud of. And you can kind of just be like, wow, I came all that way from that initial starting point. And it really helps by pushing me forward, because I'm like, wow, I did that. I can do it again. But
yeah, the doors that open as well when you put yourself out there is unbelievable. Like if you look back at my early blog posts, they were not very good, but that opened the doors to pretty much my entire career. And there's just so many jobs and stuff. Just simply putting yourself out there is the biggest door opener possible. Don't wait until you feel like you are very good, because you probably never feel like that, or you're probably missing a lot of really neat things.
That's a pretty powerful insight. Just don't wait, go do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Getting into the next section, Syntax FM. We actually, at least myself, I find huge inspiration in the work you do at Syntax FM, and the reason
Thank you.
I have gotten into NextDev FM is Syntax. So why don't you tell us the story? How did you guys get together with Scott and decide that, hey, we're gonna launch Syntax?
Yeah. So Scott and I and Joel Hooks, who runs Egghead, and Josh Owens, who was running some Meteor stuff, we had what's called a mastermind, where every 2 weeks we met up for an hour and we just kind of talk shop about what's working, what's not working, how you making money, what are you working on. And that was like really valuable for just to talk shop for an hour every 2 weeks. And then after about a year, we sort of got what we needed from it, and it wasn't as exciting anymore. But like Scott and I had a really good like rapport and really good back and forth. So for like a year after that, we're like, we should start a podcast, like every two dudes, look at us, two white dudes, we got to start a podcast. And we did it. And luckily Scott had a huge YouTube channel. I had a very big following on my courses and on Twitter and slightly smaller YouTube. And between like the two of us, we sort of launched it with a bang because we had an existing audience we could push towards it.
That's awesome. Yeah, the existing audience, and I've noticed that even for NextDev, it's like when someone else will push it out on their channel and stuff like that, because it's like the content is good, and watching some of the Syntax episodes, they're great. It's like I watched a couple of them and I was like, I can't remember which one I watched. It was recent though, but I was like, oh, I did not know that about whatever thing was talking about. And having that initial audience is a massive boost. Now, you guys are up in like the 600s of the episodes, right? The episode numbers, is that right? Or is it
almost 800, I think now? Let's see here. Almost 900 actually.
Wow.
Yeah. Quite a
That
few.
is
We were
crazy.
doing like we've been doing it for what, 7, almost 8 years, and we started with one a week, and then like we just sold all the sponsorship spots like immediately. So we're like, let's just do another one, and then we sold all those sponsorship spots. So we're like, let's add a guest. A couple of years later, we added a guest spot. So we were doing 3 a week for, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years. We recently dialed it back to just 2 podcasts because we're doing a lot more like YouTube video. But yeah, it's quite a bit. We've talked a lot about things, and a lot of people say, hey, I've listened to every single one of them, and it's wild that they've listened to me yap for, I don't know, what is that? Probably
each one's like an hour, right?
The Mondays ones were like between 15 minutes to 25 minutes, and then the other 2 were an hour. So yeah, it's probably 600, 700 hours.
Let me run a quick algorithm to average all that. But going with right now, the most recent episode, 885, how do you keep coming up with content with that? Because I feel like you got to hit a plateau at some point, or do you just not? Do you just always come up with new ideas and stuff?
Oh man, like sometimes we have a list of 10 things we want to do episodes on. And then sometimes it's a little bit tricky to figure out what to do. More so, we have lots of ideas, simply just because like I'm very lucky that I love web development, and there's always something exciting for me to talk about. And then I'm also really lucky that we didn't pigeonhole the podcast into being like a JavaScript podcast or a Angular podcast or something like that, because there's only so much you can talk about those types of things. But like web development is pretty broad, right? And like we do soft skills as well, and we do a lot of we'll probably do a 3D printing one coming up as well. There's quite a bit of interesting things to talk about.
That's awesome. I myself am curious, throughout these years of yapping on Syntax, has your perspective changed, or your approach to learning or following the industry? I imagine having this perspective as a host at Syntax might show something new to you as somebody who is in the web dev space.
It certainly has made me less opinionated, because you get to see the industry evolve over the years. And I think that happens with every developer as they have been in the industry longer. I also like some of the smartest guests that we have on. I'm always amazed at how personable And like we had the guy who created Swift on, Chris Latner. We just had the guy who created TypeScript on. We've had Ryan Dahl who created Node.js. And like every time we have one of these like killer guests, they're the most like friendly, and they have the best explanations, and they're able to just like communicate so effectively. I'm like, like how's this guy the smartest person in the world and also or like very good at just small talk before we start recording, you know? And that's always amazed me as well. That's where I want to be one day, you know? I'm probably not going to be creating Swift, but uh those guys are really smart, and their soft skills are really good as well.
Yeah, I mean, even here on like NextDev, like reaching out to different people and meeting a bunch of different people with all their different backgrounds and stuff like that. It's always the smart ones who are just like off camera. They're just super, super nice. They're super kind and just generous. And it's like, it's so interesting because you would never see that normally. But when you just do it, when you just see a lot of people, it's like, that's an interesting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So this is going to be a brain bender right here. I'll preface this. Out of all of the Syntax FM episodes, which one has been your favorite?
Oh,
and I'll let you have internet access for this quiz, so you can look it up. There's got to be one.
The series of fundamentals episodes. So it's not specifically one, but over the years we've done 7 or 8 fundamentals episodes where we talk about fundamentals of JavaScript, the fundamentals of TypeScript, of CSS, of HTML, and then also like fundamentals of promises and error handling and things like that. And those ones do super well. So I'm very proud of those ones. And I think it's really good content. So yeah, I think I would probably say that if I were to guess.
Yeah, I can get behind that. Because do you think it's because that those videos have been so helpful is why mostly? Like they've been helpful to other people and you're like, okay, I find pride in that. Not pride, but like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
And those ones also take the most amount of prep. So it's nice when you spend a lot of time prepping something and it does well versus like it's also easy to have something do well when you jump on a trend or talk about how outlandish something is, you know. Reacting to like what happened to Remix is one of our most popular episodes recently. So it's makes me happy that you can still make really good content and people appreciate it, because it's becoming ever more difficult to stand out in technical content when there's a lot of like it's just like YouTube. You're competing with absolutely everything. Like we compete with Mr. Beast. When somebody sits down on YouTube and wants to watch something, it's not just I want to watch some tech stuff. It's literally anything. How it's made. You know, I want to watch how it's made instead of learn about JavaScript.
I think you got me there too. So leading right into how it's made, you've obviously been doing a lot of 3D printing discovery recently. What was the initial, like, because you have a Bamboo Labs X1C, right?
Yeah.
What was the initial step into getting you to like purchase that?
So I'm huge into DIY. I built this whole office. It's totally soundproofed, and I finished the whole basement. Like I've been into DIY for a long time. I'm a bit of an electronics hacker. I'll dip into literally anything. I have a huge workshop of tools, and like people tell me all the time, like I can't believe you don't have a 3D printer. You know, like that's the one thing you're missing. You dip into everything. And for the longest time, I've held off because I was like, I don't need another hobby. I'm like swimming, or I'm drowning in like stuff that I'm excited about and stuff I want to tinker with. And I feel like 3D printing would be just another one. So for the longest time, I was like, I'm not getting into 3D printing. But I just kept hitting problems in my life where I'm like, if I had a 3D printer, I would be able to fix this immediately. And I finally was like, you know what? My wife's like, you've been talking about it for 7 years. Just get one, you know? So I finally was like, all right, I'm making the dive, and I got the X1C.
Did you get the AMS with that too, like the multiple
Yeah,
filament
and
switcher?
I'm building these like filament boxes right now.
Nice.
That will have like a humidity sensor, and there's like a desiccant in the top of it. So I'm building those, but the AMS is like it's automatic spool, automatic material switcher or something. Yeah, you've got one, and I'm already being like, they're $400. You know, well, what if I got 7 of them and just didn't have to do it? But like, it's way too expensive. But I would love another one already.
It's so tempting. I can say with my 6 right now, I often reach the bottle cap where I'm like, if I just got one more AMS, and then I could have 8 colors for a print or something like that. And I'm like, it's very tempting, but then I'm also like, I'm working with a limited square footage here.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know how many more different 3D printers I can handle. So it's thankfully it's in a small enclosed area, or else I would have maybe like 10 more printers. But thankfully the small enclosure prevents me from going completely overboard.
Like I've had the Bamboo X1C for like 2 weeks, and I have a Flash Forge sitting on my desk right now. I already bought another one. But like a thing I do is I buy the most clapped out broken version. Like I have an ATV, and instead of buying a nice ATV, I bought like a really shitty ATV, and then I learn how it works and I fix it, and I learn about engines and things like that. I did it with a Sea-Doo as well. So I was like, this Bamboo is like almost too easy. You just press the print button and it goes. I want to learn a little bit about like why does this happen? You know, like, is it the temps? Is it the humidity? Is it the nozzle? And it's frustrating as hell. I kind of regret it, but I'm learning a lot.
Did you? Because if you wanted to learn a lot, every 3D printing enthusiast will tell you this, and because this was my journey. Yeah. I went from an Ender 3, which was the best machine ever, but it was so broken. It would always be breaking. You'd have to readjust the bed. You'd have to make sure your nozzle was right. You'd have to make sure the airflow was right. It didn't have like the motor on the nozzle for like direct drive filament. And that's what I initially had 3 of those when I started out Mandarin 3D, my 3D printing company. And oh my gosh, the headaches with that. It was just horrible. But then my next step on that was Anchor Make dropped their M5C printer. And I was like, okay, this has some potential. I grabbed like 3 of those. They worked okay. And then I was seeing all the hype around Bamboo. And I got, which one? I got this Bamboo machine right here. My first ever Bamboo P1S, brand new. I set it up out of the box and I was like, all right, let me level the bed. Wait, it levels the bed for me?
Yeah, you don't have to.
And then I was like, okay, well, let me just make sure everything's calibrated. And like when I was setting it up, it was like, do auto calibration? I'm like, yes. And I'm like, okay, well, let me just print a benchy just to make sure everything's good, because I'm probably going to need to adjust like my flow rate or calibration. Do I still have it? I think I might still have it actually. No, it's in the other room. But that benchy, right here. I have my first ever benchy.
It just works.
Let's see if the camera focuses. It is. Come on, camera.
It's like butter smooth. Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
No, like, and this is just from the Bamboo Lab app. Just press print, and it just works.
It's amazing. Like, if you think about all the variables that go into 3D printer, like it literally has to be level to the like 0.2 of a millimeter, and like my color printer can't even print when yellow is out. It's nuts. Like, how did they figure that out? How do they ship me such a precise machine that can melt plastic in an amazing uniform? I didn't realize it until I got it, but I'm like, man, this thing is an engineering feat. Yeah.
Like this is okay. I might need to refocus. Come on. So this is actually from one of the Hoyong image to 3D models. I dropped the image in there, grab the 3D, and like it is.
Oh man, I was looking for that this morning. What's that called? Hoyong?
I'm gonna mess up the pronunciation, so I don't even want to say it, but I'll send you the link. Here, let me pull it up on the stream. There it is. So, and we'll see, because I have Hugging Face Pro, so we'll do a live demo of this. All right, here is the link. Sending that in our chat. So it works really, 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 really well because all you do. Let me see. Let me make sure I don't dox myself with an image. What would be a good image? So right here is an image that I'm going to drop in. It's like a face shot that I did. Let's see how good this works actually. And then you literally just press generate, and it runs through some multi-level layer diffusion model. And yeah, so it takes about 60 seconds. So I have 60 seconds to yap about it. But like I showed in that little model, it's super, super accurate, and it works really good about inferring like 3D characteristics from the 2D images. And let me put you on. Let me put everyone on something. If you need a part for like an enclosure or something like that, and you draw it up against a sheet of paper, like if you're trying to line something up against wood, if you draw it against a sheet of paper, cut that out, hold it up to the camera, and upload it to this, it nearly creates whatever you're thinking perfectly. Like if you were to create like an additional support or something like that up against a wall, you could curve it, take a picture, and upload it, and it works perfectly.
Like you draw it on a piece of paper and just hold it up. Wow, that's cool.
You gotta like pencil it in to make sure that it knows that it's there's a mask there, but still it works pretty good. All right, so I mean, like look at that. That is, I might print that right now.
That's amazing.
It's like, yeah, it's like, and if you angle it the same way as like the photo, it looks nearly perfect. So there's a lot of stuff coming nowadays with like this 3D generated sort of image to 3D models, but yeah, I need to stop geeking out about it.
No, I'm excited about that. I was working this morning on some JavaScript depth map generation with AI, and then I converted the depth map to STL, and like it worked really well, but it only did like straight, like everything behind my head was missing, and I was like, no, I want the like 360. So this is exactly what I want.
Yeah, I definitely recommend to anyone watching, check it out. It is super, super cool. And I bought the Hugging Face Pro plan just because my usage of it was already up within like 2 hours of it. And I have so many different like random prints, and like, I don't know where it is, but I printed my girlfriend like a little manatee with a hat on it. And all I did is I took an image of a manatee from like Google or whatever, brought that into like Mid-Journey, just selected the area of the head of the manatee, said add a little cute hat, and it added like a little cute top hat or whatever, and then threw that into Hoyong, generated the image, and then printed it just like that. And yeah, it's crazy that we live in a world where you can just do that.
I know. I told my kids this morning, I'm like, you can draw on a piece of paper like a monster, and we'll make it into a character.
Yeah,
that's cool.
And talking about this really makes me feel bad. I'm missing out on 3D printing, and
you gotta get one. Man,
yeah.
Like people talk to me for so long. They're like, you gotta get one. And I was like, yeah. You're gonna print one of those stupid little dragons that everybody has. Like you see all these like flexi dragons at like markets and stuff. And like, I don't like toys. I hate junk, but the utility of it is so nice. But also that spaceship is cool too.
This is the like, I'm gonna give a shout out to Zach Warnick from X. If you're watching, Zach, thank you. He put me on. This isn't a free model; it's a paid model, but this is the best paid model that I've ever done. I'm having to remember what it's called, but it is a super accurate like Starship model, and the rest of the model, if you purchase it on the site, it has like the chopstick arms for like the official SpaceX thing, and I'm gonna mount it right over there, so it's just mounted on the wall with the chopsticks.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
warning to everyone watching: if you're a guy and you buy a 3D printer, your wife will hate you because doohickeys and little things and stuff like that will pop up all over the house, and you can't stop it.
All right. I think we'll cut 3D printing segment here. Over, guys. You're making me feel too bad.
I'll hold myself off.
Move it offline, yeah.
I saw a couple of hours ago, actually, you posted that you made a math video game for your kids.
Yeah.
Super curious to hear about your journey there.
I literally opened up Cursor and did half an hour of typing what I want. So I thought like, let's jump on this like vibe coding bandwagon. I've built quite a bit of stuff where I don't necessarily care about the code. I just want it to do what I want it to do. And I've been seeing people making games. I was like, oh, my kids have been asking. They're like, can you make us a math game? You know? And I was like, yeah, I can now. So I just typed in a box for 45 minutes or whatever, and out the other end comes a game. And they're stoked about it. Like they're like, can we work on it tonight? Can we build some stuff? Like they saw it, like they're like, you have to be able to change your hair color. So I just typed in the box, allow me to customize hair color and a few other things, and boom, hair selector comes out the other end, which is, they're so excited about it.
Man, this is awesome. You can really wipe code a whole lot of things nowadays, huh?
Yeah, it's surprising how like, obviously I don't know that it would be for like production, probably not, but I don't know, it's really fun to make a game.
I think definitely the vibe coding of games inspired by Levels. Levels was a massive boost because a couple episodes we had Lewis from Comp AI who like bought the Mars ad on Levels game, and we were talking about how like it's this whole era of like personal software where it doesn't have to be production ready. It can just run on your local network or in a browser on your machine. And I don't think that the non-production ready is a bad thing because it's just for you, and it's fun to build, and it's fun to play around with it and everything. So I think that that's super cool. And if there's a game that can get me excited about math, I will gladly pay for that because I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah, gamification is a very effective technique at teaching concepts that are tough to get over.
Yeah,
I think gamifying things is definitely a good way to break things down for younger audience. Anywho, so also, by the way, I appreciate you open sourcing the thing. I noticed that with a lot of these vibe coded games, it leans heavily on 3JS, which
yeah,
I guess makes sense. Yeah.
It's I don't see why you wouldn't. You know, I just typed in a box and I didn't really code any of it. What I really want to do is I want to post the prompt trail to see how I got to it, because there's some very frustrating moments where you go back in time.
That was exactly the question I was going to ask. You know, any insights on prompting? How would you prompt better looking back at your experience making this?
I think the key is like focusing in on a specific feature and knowing which files those are, and then just that way you can limit the scope of what you're doing for that specific feature. If you just go like wide out entire code base, it starts to get a little bit messy.
Did you use Cursor or like V0?
I use Cursor for this, but I've been hopping around between like Windsurf and VS Code, and I've used Bolt and V0 a little bit, but not as much, as I feel like the dev experience is a little bit more in line with what I do. right in the editor.
Right. And I think I've always thought about this too, because like you share I wish there was like a way to like archive your like cursor prompt history, because there's so many good prompts that I wish I could like star or something like that and be like, hey, this is a great prompt. Let me save this and use this again. Because a big thing that I've seen is like the bleeding edge frameworks have all of these specific like breaking changes, and I'm like, I just wish I could just remember these cursor prompts that I do every time and kind of update it so that way it's applied for everything. So, but I think sharing prompt history would be really, really helpful as well to kind of move on with everything and like share that sort of inspiration.
Yeah, I agree as well. Like, I wonder if there's even a way just to export it, and I'd love to see the tips and tricks people use.
Yeah, actually makes me think this is a viable project idea, right? Build some sort of plugin, whatever, that would extract the conversation history out of Cursor and maybe reveal how you can prompt better.
Yeah, I think another one which would be cool is if it like automatically did like a git commit and took like a screenshot of the product at each one, so you could see the prompt with like a thumbnail all the way along. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
like
I got my son here. My wife had to run to an appointment, so if you hear a baby yelling, that's he's right here.
Oh, he's just vibe coding in the corner. The next multi-billion-dollar.
Exactly. Yeah, he just raised $1 million.
He's like that one kid on LinkedIn that we saw that I remember the other day, and he was like, I'm 14 and I just raised a Series A for my startup. And I'm like, man, I'm behind. I haven't even done like a pre-seed for my own stuff.
I have to ask, Wes, you have a family, right?
Yep.
And you also have, so many things going on in your professional life. How do you balance all of it together?
I don't know. It's tricky. Like, because there's so much I would like to do, but there's only so much time. Pretty clear boundaries with work. Like I work 9 to 5, and then it's family time outside of that. Every now and then I'll dip into some coding in the evening, but I almost always regret that because I feel like garbage the next day. Not that that's the way everybody should do it. I certainly had many days where I coded my brains out for 18 hours a day, and that was some fun times as well. But it's just like you gotta make space for both of those things and have a good balance with it. So I don't know. I have too many other tips other than that, and like try to get the stuff done. Like I don't goof around very much anymore because I'm somewhat limited in the time that I have.
I'm just impressed that you don't do any code out of the standard 9 to 5 hours. Like I do code and development and software engineering during my 9 to 5, but I feel like the second I get home, I'm like, all right, now I can work on my own stuff. Well, I guess your professional is sort of your own stuff anyway, so it kind of overlaps.
That's the move. Yeah, like my entire job is my own stuff, right? We're making syntax podcasts, we're making videos, I'm making courses, so all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah, that is super cool. So looking back at your entire career trajectory and history, what do you think was the biggest like blocker or challenge that you kind of overcame? And like, what did you learn from that?
Biggest challenge I overcame. It's probably like a tie between like just like overcoming the frustration of learning to code and getting good at something. But also like another one is just like putting yourself out there and asking people for money to buy a course, because I remember when I put it out there, I was like, is anyone going to want this? Should you really be charging money? It's a little bit different now. People have $900 courses and whatever. But like at the time it was like, can you do this? And luckily, yeah, the community really supported me, and it was really cool. So just putting yourself out there was probably a big one, and I'm very glad I did that.
Yeah. And kind of jumping into that, have you seen, because I'll give my personal take on this first and I'll let you elaborate with yours. So obviously with this era of AI, you've got your infinitely capable and infinitely assistable personal assistant that can do whatever you beckon and call. Do you think that courses are not on the decline, but like as relevant as they were before? Because I think that even though you have access to Claude or stuff like that,
Mhm.
the sort of connection you feel when you do like a video course or something like that, I feel like I get more out of it because they're giving specific pinpointed examples, and two, it actually works because it's been validated. Half the time with AI, I'm like, is this gonna break production?
Yeah.
And it did. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think like the types of courses will probably change over time. I think like everything is always changing. That's the only constant in tech. But what a lot of people do say when they take my courses is like, yeah, I learned how Next.js works, but like I get so much value out of watching somebody else dev and debug and think about how to architect something, and I hit a problem, and how do we get into this, how do we fix it? So people are still missing that. I think like you probably don't need them as much, if I'm being honest, because you can just ask, how do I do this? But I certainly think that people are always going to want to be learning, and these models need to learn on something. Um, I once prompted for something, and it gave me what I think is my code, or at least a variation on it, because it's the webcam photo booth from my JavaScript 30 course is on GitHub probably 100,000, not 100,000, probably 20,000 times. There's a lot.
Right.
And I prompted it for the photo booth code, and I was like, this is close to what I would write. Maybe I did write this.
That's
So
super
like
cool.
someone's got to feed these AI overlords. So I'll keep
Right?
doing it.
That's funny.
Yeah, I think we are approaching the end of the section, so I'm gonna try to work towards wrapping things up. We are quite curious to hear what is next for Wes Bos. Anything exciting to share about your next few weeks, months?
Yeah. Right now I'm working on a talk going to Paris in a couple of weeks for .js. I'm talking about using AI in JavaScript. I'm really excited about that. I've been working on a TypeScript course for quite a while now. That's just about done. I'm excited to get that out the door. With Syntax, we're working on some really cool videos, lots of new content. We've been leaning heavily into short form content as well. Um, Man, all kinds of stuff. I don't plan too much ahead, but just it's a lot going on right now with web development and JavaScript in general. So a lot to learn, a lot to put out.
Right. And if you need someone to come on for your 3D printing episode, I will gladly volunteer
Oh,
myself.
awesome.
I could talk about that for hours. We could have a whole different 3D printing show.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it's interesting. There's so much to talk about. I love talking shop about it. It's cool.
yeah, and we'll wrap up with this hopefully final question. If you could go back and give your younger self doing all those MySpace pages one piece of advice about your career, what would it be?
Um, that's a good question, because like I don't know, it kind of worked out for me. So I'm not sure I would change too much, but I would say like keep up the momentum, because it's crazy how much better you get if you keep building things. So I would probably say like keep building stuff, keep putting yourself out there, because these people who you look up to online are not, some of them are geniuses, but most of them are just regular people who did a lot of work. And you can get there as well.
Great piece of advice. You guys
Thank you.
better keep building things.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much for joining us today, Wes. It was an
You're
absolute
welcome.
pleasure to learn about you, about your history. It's been fantastic to also hear your advice to younger folks. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks
right,
a lot for having me
everyone.
on. It was fun.
Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe so that way you can see the edited clips of Wes Bos takes. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and we will catch you guys on the next Dev.